Gio, it's good to see you with the Cowboys in your background.
Very nice. You should know this. I think you were running right up and down somewhere right there.
I loved the venue. I thought the venue was really great. I had not been there. And I see the pool kind of overlooks that's a good aerial shot.
Yeah, that's why I was playing with it, and it kept showing me cheerleaders. I don't want the cheerleaders. I want the aerial view.
The aerial view is really good. It's a super cool development. Jerry outdid himself. Got the Cowboys fit, got formation, got the field that you can play on, got the Omni, which is awesome. So it was a great location.
And you didn't actually go into the stadium, but where you see that,
I didn't even make it into the stadium.
It's huge, right? And so the crazy part about it is it's not only their practice facility, but they've got, and I think you know Texas well enough by now that high school football is huge,
right?
In Texas, and so they actually play their games in that stadium.
Some of the high schools. I think we saw one of Thursday night. It must have been Thursday before the disco party. We saw that one of the high school teams coming in after
look at this
some delicious Mexican.
Look at this. This is the inside.
That's wild.
So people don't realize how, and you can see Frisco ISD. So the actual independent school district. That's where they have. I think this.
Wow. And it's enclosed. That's for the heat, I guess.
Yeah.
Wow.
So yeah. Welcome to Texas. Everything's bigger in Texas. I know you're from California.
I just try to convince my dog walker to move to Texas. She's getting married. She's a personal trainer and can't afford gym space because it's so expensive. I was like, you need to go to Dallas. Yeah. I mean,
the amount of money is crazy, right? You walked up and down that facility. I mean, you'll see Ferraris, Lamborghinis, Ranger. I mean, and you see those in California. So I'm not saying it's something completely astronomical, but at the end of the day, our cost of living is so significantly
our gas price went over $7 yesterday.
$7.
I know. I could see it from the highway. Tank? Well, exactly. For the Supreme or whatever it's called, but yours is $3.09 last week.
Insane. I would be in a lot of trouble driving my truck around. It was funny.
I know. I have an SUV. I have to get an electric car because I'm spending so much on gas. I mean, it's good for the environment anyway, but literally I saw the $7. I was like, no, not again. I thought that was gone for a while.
Well, fingers crossed. Hopefully it'll come back down.
Okay, let's talk about so the venue was great. Let's talk about the conference. I thought, so you emceed.
So I think the really cool part about it is we were able to, because let's start at the beginning, right?
Okay.
We were able to get Venture X to come in and do their annual summit.
Yep.
From there, right? And so it's really cool because it really
makes perfect sense. It makes perfect sense. And next year, Office Evolution should do it. Expansive should do it. Everybody should do it.
And so the real cool part is it really started on Monday. I mean, I was there from Monday at 1:00 until Thursday night that I left. Unfortunately, I wasn't able to stay for Friday. But we'll jump into all that. I want to hear about how that went from you directly. But I mean, it was a day and a half of Venture X and a bunch of vendors like voices of the industry like yourself and Faye and myself and others were already there a day and a half early.
Yeah.
And so it was really cool to it was kind of like a little warm up and lead into it. And so by the time it started, you already knew your way around and everything else, which was huge.
I knew where I was going to get my workout in. I knew in the morning.
Exactly. And I think that's part of what was so awesome was to have Venture X there and see, I mean, obviously you remember DC and their first kind of lead into the industry from this global standpoint, and how much growth has been awesome to see. And just it's a great example of how we've continued to grow in our demand and supply, right, in a positive way. And so I thought that was really cool. I was on a panel. I know you were on a panel with them, and so I think it was definitely something that was special this year.
Yeah. Okay. So I was telling somebody this yesterday. My Enneagram 3 personality. I really should have the little write up. It's hilarious. But when I have a whole week of no meetings, sometimes I'll be like, that's the perfect week. I'm going to write a book this week. Like totally. So, but I went into this week, deleted everything from my calendar. I was like, I'm going to everything and I'm just going to be really present. Because usually I used to run the conference. So I've not been as an attendee since Denver in 2015.
Oh, wow.
Right. So we haven't had the conference in 2 years, but so usually I have so much to do. I don't remember anybody I meet. It's all a big blur and I cannot even function when I'm done. And this week I was like, okay, the last time I went to, not Seattle Juicy, but last Juicy, I think I was building like my community manager course during that conference. I was like the ultimate multitasker. And I was like, okay, I'm just going to go to everything and be super engaged. And that's what I did. And it was so fun. And even then I didn't get to talk to everybody I wanted to talk to or have like a good sit down with everyone I wanted to. And I was still running into people I'd never met before, like sitting next to me randomly in the sessions.
Yeah. And I'm not going to let you get away with that much humility, right? You had a lot to do on the front end, maybe going into it, and you were still
not even as much as you, though. I know right. Even to back up to your point, like great content committee.
Yeah.
William Edmondson stepped in to kind of take the leadership on running the conference and had a really strong content committee. And I really love that. I'm such a content person that sometimes in the past, I'd huddle up and like get one or two people to work on the content. It was such a team effort. And I think that, makes a huge difference because you get a good kind of broad representation of themes and speakers. And so I think high five to the content committee.
Yeah, no, I mean, kudos to Jack for letting William step into the role and kind of bring this over the finish line.
Yeah.
Kudos to the content committee, which included us. And, we started.
Yes, high five to us and Michelle.
And then we got smaller. We got smaller as we went with Michelle and William. And so we were able to really push it through. I mean, Miranda, what a rock star coming through. I mean, doing stuff that she didn't even know she was going to be doing. And then even Nikki and Jennifer and others kind of stepped in and filled gaps. But I mean, I think we pulled off something pretty amazing. And if we're being honest, there was a point where we're like, okay, how are we going to pull this off?
There's almost always that point, no matter how like well organized you think the team is, or whether there's a strong full-time staff in place. I think the thing about there's so much virtual content that I was a little bit in the camp of like, I don't need more content. Live content is better.
Okay.
I don't know. I
agree 100%. So I'm ADHD, right? And so, and you're on these podcasts with me and literally we're talking and I just
you're writing a book on our podcast. Yeah.
And so I even went as far to your point to be present. I typically wear my iWatch and I actually chose to not wear an iWatch, right? And so it was funny.
I did notice your notifications were silenced and I'm not sure I ever see that from you.
Well, it was because I didn't want to be, and even then I'm wearing my watch and I keep doing this, like wanted to tap the side of it to see what time it is, what's come in. And I did it very purpose to be present, right?
Because as the MC, you got to pay a little bit of attention.
For sure. And that was the other part is, I mean, I loved that first day and being involved as an MC, but at the same time, I hated it because I missed some of the content, right? Because I was in the hallway trying to find the next speaker.
Yep.
What's going on? What are the steps and everything?
Yeah, you have to be really engaged in the logistics. That's my problem every year. I never see a single session. But if you get a good moderator, Shlomo, I just thought did like a great job with his session. I don't know if you saw that one on Thursday. I think it was Thursday. Just great. Yes. Like that, one thing about our industry is people are so like candid and transparent and authentic. I mean, not in every case, but overall. And I thought that was one panel where people were just kind of calling it like it is. And, you get just some of the like body language and jokes and things that don't come out the same way on Zoom. So
Yeah. And I mean, there's something to be said, and I mean, being with people, right? Just the energy that people
yeah,
bring you. You can't replace that, right? You can't
cannot
replace a
replace it.
handshake or a
Yeah.
hug
Yep.
or, things that make you feel truly connected.
Yeah.
And so it's so good coming out of the pandemic to be able to do that again, right? And we've got new hurdles to overcome and things to work through, but at the end of the day, you can't replace that. That's human nature, right?
Yeah.
And so it was awesome to have that. But back to your point, I mean, the hardest part for me was it was like I was hosting the damn thing, because not only am I on the board, not only am I emceeing, but then it's in my city, right? And
Oh,
so
right. Yes.
it
Yes.
gets even worse because
People want you to drive them around and
or where do we go eat, or
mm-hmm.
and look, the Mexican Italian me kicks in at that point. It's the culture side of I am a naturally take over, and I'm a host. And it's so funny when I do stuff, people are like, did you have fun? I'm like, no, I was exhausted, but I hope everyone else had fun. I mean, after emceeing Wednesday, I went upstairs and took an hour nap before.
So tiring. Yes. Do you know what? So I have emceed the show before, and I thought when you went on stage, I was like, this is the perfect energy for this event. You were so natural and so much like natural energy. It was, and everyone, you're the perfect MC. I was like, I didn't know you that well 2 years ago. I never would have known you were the perfect MC, but I nominate you for permanent MC of the conference.
I kind of enjoyed splitting the time, to be honest.
But it's so hard, right? It's exhausting to MC. You have to pay so much attention. And it seems like it shouldn't be that hard because it's like your natural talent, but you have to pay a lot of it. I think it's mentally really draining. So for sure on the nap.
Yeah. And, I think the difference is talking about that. You and I have talked a lot about personalities and, how do you engage with people and stuff. And it's so interesting. I mean, there's even different ways to host and be an MC, right? And so you know me well enough, and that's why it's uncensored, right? I didn't prepare at all, right? I was like, okay, who do I have to thank?
You can only imagine the pages of notes that I used to have.
Oh my gosh. And that's the crazy part is, and so it keeps you from truly engaging and making people feel
like in the moment.
Totally. In the moment, right? Yeah. I mean, when I can sit on a stage and say something about Bill or Grant or you or Mara, or, you sit there. I can't tell you how many people walked up to me and were like, oh, thank you so much for calling out. We felt so special, right? And I wish you could do that with everyone, but that's part of what these events are for. Is it's really, these people choose to come here and spend, not only their time, their money, their energy, their efforts to be there, but I mean, for them to feel like they're getting something out of it, and you're really good at this too, right? But it's even better in person is you're a connector. You love connecting people, and the ability to go, I can't tell you how many, I think I did it to you once or twice, where I'm like, oh yeah, come here, Jamie. And I'd introduce you. And then I was like, oh, excuse me. And I walked away.
Totally.
Yeah. And naturally you do that as well, but you can't do that. It's not the same thing to do that in person and connect to people.
Yeah.
And explain why you're connecting them as it is online and just shooting an email.
No, I love that. I walked over to Kurt. Kurt's also a 3, by the way. And Kurt and I were reveling in the fact that 3s love karaoke. We love a microphone. I was like, Kurt, I need to find Brendan McGee. I only know him online. I can sort of know what he looks like. He's like, of course I know him. I have his cell phone. I was like, okay, call him. So he calls him. And then later I was like, Brendan, you need to meet the guys from Instant. So I send like Nick and Joe a message. You need to go find Brendan before you leave the conference. It's like, that energy and those connections, like that stuff might just not even happen if you're just doing it offline, or just not take on the same excitement. I know. I love being in person. I feel like we need to do it more often.
Yeah. And I'll tell you, it's even seen people's wardrobes, right? It was funny. So having a conversation with Grant.
Sophia?
After what panel was it? Was it after the nerd panel? Yeah, it was after the nerd panel. After
the
Brandon's with I love you, Scott and John and everyone else on the nerd side. But either way, he walked up to me, goes, I'm so concerned right now. I mean, it's like I don't feel like people are seeing what's really going on, and we're supposed to be getting all this product back, and why don't they see what I see? And I looked at him and I said, and obviously I know Grant very well. I looked at him, I said, Grant, not everyone can pull off a floral shirt with a patterned floral jacket. And he looked at me like I was crazy. And I said, look at what you're wearing. You can pull it off because you've got the confidence and you've got the understanding of what goes well and what doesn't. Most people here couldn't pull either of them off.
No, I thought it's so funny. I thought the same thing when I met Grant. I was like, of course, that's what he's wearing.
Well, that explains why I tell you he's bougie Burning Man, right? Now you get it a little further. And so it's in that moment that I could compare literally what he was wearing and go, right? Not everyone here is going to get it because they look at things completely different. I mean, you have Jason McCann that gets up there in all black. Nothing against that. He's got a great fashion designer, but that's just the reality. For some of us, it's easier. I used to pull stuff like that off, and people are like, "Oh my gosh, why don't you dress like that anymore?" I'm like, because it's so much easier to just wear wear all black all the time, and then it.
Yeah, how about the photo you sent me? I was like, whose wardrobe is that? You're like, it's my closet in the Omni. It's like 7 polo shirts, Avis and Young polo shirts, and very hats. And your red sneaks. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, the red sneakers were for you specifically because I know you love your red shoes.
A little flair.
But I think, just going back to it, it's just that interaction, be able to see people's body language, to see what they're wearing, to see, how they even engage with other people, right? I mean, you can tell more about a person in their interaction, non-verbal interaction, than you can sometimes with verbal interaction, right? I mean,
for sure.
Are your arms crossed? Are you turning your back?
Which no one can see on Zoom, right? It's like, no, can't see any of it. Wait, what did Grant wish that people were seeing?
Well, the fact that, the hospitality product offering of not offering just the typical stuffy product, right? It's like, why aren't more people doing?
Like, why is he the only guy in the room who's talking about that? Although, did you see my panel? Did you hear Javier talking about the Benetton lattes?
Oh yeah, for sure. But again, going back to that's a Hispanic culture, right? The Hispanic culture
to be
stuff
that's
like
interesting.
That.
Yeah.
And so, and it's funny enough. I mean, going back to Grant's conversation when we had him on the podcast, what did he bring up? He brought up when he was at Rosewood in Mexico, and they brought him watermelon with tahini on it, and it's a different level.
I think the lesson here is that we all maybe we should do our next event in Mexico and just have a cultural immersion and see what kind of insights we come out with.
Do you want to talk about feeling like a host, and you throw in a Mexican that speaks Spanish and a bunch of gringos, then I'd be in a lot of trouble. We need
an uncensored retreat.
Ooh, that would be cool. I'd be down with that.
Anyway, it's interesting that Grant felt that way. I feel that way too. Grant, why aren't there more Grants out there? Yeah. Next wave. But
and it's so unique how people look at it. I mean, he was on a panel with Nick, obviously, which has been around the industry forever, recently sold to WeWork. And I mean, Sharon, he got up there, and I'd never heard this story before, where his team actually tattooed.
That was pretty recent. I had just heard that too.
On the inside of their lip. I'm like, wow, that's a cult right there. But I mean, it's culture, right? And Sarah killed it up there with the 25N. I mean, no offense to Nick and Grant, but she dominated those guys. Thank God, right? They both needed a little humbling.
Mara and Megan need to hold on to her tight. She's so fun. I love the 25 North team. I spent dinner with them, and we went to the 70s party together. They're super fun.
Yeah, no, so that was great. So, I mean, day one, we had some great panels, a lot of great content, and just hearing different product types. I mean, Jason got up there and spoke about Verispace and how that's grown. And, Tim I don't know what his deal with biophilia was. It cracked me up. I mean, did you?
Wait, I don't think I saw that one.
Okay, so
I saw a lot of content, but not all the content. I have to.
Yeah, so biophilia was basically plants.
Yeah.
And so the fact that Jason and the Verispace have gone out of the way to bring in so much plant life, right?
Yeah, like what Amy said. You remember Amy King was talking about what she had, like 20,000 plants in her space or something like that.
Yeah, and so it became like, the Pee Wee Herman, every time you hear biophilia, and everyone goes crazy. And,
that's
Tim
funny. Right. See, that doesn't happen on Zoom. Nobody's like,
No.
Totally.
And then, I mean, Michael White talking about, Venture X again and everything they've got going on with the acquisition of Office Evolution and that whole bit. I mean, it's just so interesting. We're seeing again. I got to the point where I try to avoid the word bonvoy because then we both have to drink.
Yeah.
And so, but again, it's that product evolution that we're seeing across the entire industry.
Yeah.
Just like the hotel and hospitality sector.
Yeah. We need a bonvoy session next year. We should start the agenda right now. I was actually thinking about that the other day. I was like, we have to just like start putting those meetings on the calendar again.
Yeah, no, I think
it takes a long
I think
time.
it would be great not to wait till the last minute doing it, right? We can
Not that it was the last minute.
Preparing.
Speaking of drinking in bonvoy, then there was karaoke night.
I don't know what you're talking about.
I feel like everybody was at karaoke night. So I think for anybody, most people listening to this probably were not at the conference. So you missed out. I think one of the like really special things about our industry is how fun people are and how like it's just part of the culture. Not everybody went to karaoke night, but a shocking number of people, and even people who didn't come with like other people they knew.
Yeah.
Like, I knew people who were solos and I was like, I can't believe these guys are at karaoke night. Cause sometimes if you don't, maybe feel a little like on the outside, if people are getting a little crazy and everybody knows each other. And I thought it was a pretty fun and relatively inclusive event from that standpoint. But like you could go to a lot of conferences where people are not all like going to karaoke. I'm sure there's lots of bar time at plenty of conferences, but karaoke and 70s parties.
No, and I mean,
everybody dresses up and puts on a wig.
And now you see people's real personalities, right? And that's what I loved about it. And when my post was on LinkedIn that mom made me take down, was
blaming that on Shlomo. I was like, Gio wants me to leave this up. It's a
for the record. For the record, Grant totally threw you under the bus. When we saw you running to your car that next morning after your big time workout, you were like, Shlomo didn't like it, and you ran off.
Shlomo really didn't like it.
Well, it's funny. He turns to me, he goes, Jamie was the one in the lobby that said that she had a problem with it. And I was like, look, I'll just take it down. It's not that big of a deal. But my point is not sticking to that. But my point is just, you get to see people's personalities. Most people don't realize that Kurt is a freaking musician, right? He's a drummer in a band.
Kurt
He's a singer. Yeah. See, you don't even know that.
I didn't even pick that up. No, I just knew that like he loved karaoke. And Ruben.
Oh.
I was totally surprised by Ruben, how much he was like into the karaoke and the dancing and
again, Ruben loves the spotlight, right? He was the MC for the Venture X deal, and that's why he's got those chops with it that then
totally
go down in the beard. And so that's my point: is you see people's personalities. Shlomo getting up there and cutting loose.
Wait, did you see the Shlomo? You might have left. I was like, this is an insurance claim waiting to happen.
Oh, no.
Shlomo, it was a 70s party, but they played the Dirty Dancing song, and Shlomo's got like trying to do the over the head thing with a lovely young lady who was there, who was like a quarter of the size of Shlomo.
Freaking Viking picking up people and tossing them across the room.
I know. Well, I was at a dinner. I had 2 dinners with Shlomo. I had a lot of Shlomo time. The first night he had us all doing this like Jewish toast with like tequila shots, in a restaurant where no one else was. It was very
no
funny.
one was yelling Mazel Tov and breaking
totally stuff. It was Jost. I don't even know like what the actual like word is, but we were all like, he would yell a toast and we'd all yell Jost, and it was it's super fun to your point about the personality. I've met Shlomo a bunch of times and just got to know him a lot better. I mean, we did the podcast episode with him. He's very funny. He and I connect because of CrossFit and, his like athletic stuff. And then we did the workout on the field, which was really fun. And some unusual, like Caroline from PON came, which surprised me. I think that came from like karaoke. I was like, you got to come to the workout in the morning. And she shows up. So, and
you have scrubs up me. They're like, they've had too much fun partying. They're not waking up. And
they're not, no way they're doing it.
I look down, I'm like, you freaking lazy son of a gun.
It was a pretty approachable workout, but a good one. The best way to get over a hangover is to work out.
Why would you have a hangover? I mean, I don't even know what you're talking about.
Yeah, no, right.
We don't want you to get in trouble, so we won't.
No, let's not get me in trouble. Good point.
Your daughter might get upset.
Yeah. What else?
Speaking of how funny was that WTF thing that I sent you?
Very funny. Right on. That would be hilarious.
So
I think another, like, one of the themes I thought was good was, kind of some of the demand side, like instant, was essentially saying like a little like shift in, enterprise demand, and there's not enough supply. Like their concern right now is getting more supply on the market. And that's probably not for tomorrow, but that, that's coming. So that was something I kind of latched onto. It's like, they see a lot of the demand drivers and they're worried about supply.
Yeah. I mean, I think that's huge, right? To hear some of those people talk about that. And then even the session on the end game, right? What's your exit strategy?
Okay. So I missed that. I have to confess, I flew out Friday morning
I flew Thursday night.
I know. I was bummed to miss that. I wish next year would be
got it on video, so I think you and I can see it. I don't know if anyone else can.
Okay, good. Okay, great. I figured somehow that was recorded, but I want everyone to come live, but I also think there's a lot of quality in that content. So I was super bummed to have missed that.
Yeah, no, for sure. And the idea, so here's the interesting part about the end game is there's people that are exiting now because they've been in the business for 15, 20, 30 years in some cases, and are going, this is not the same product that I've been peddling.
Yeah.
For better words, for the last 15, 20 years, and wanting out, right? And just wanting to retire or move on to something else. And then you have, sadly, people that have failed, right? And so there is the reality of what's the end game there? How do you get out of your deal? How do you hand it off to someone else, whether it be just a clean exchange or there be money exchanged, or there's different ways to look at it. And then the last one is, what is your long-term strategy to exit, right? And so the good old, you go into it with a, end in sight. What's your exit strategy ultimately?
Yep.
And it's really great to hear that there's people thinking about that, because I think there's a lot of people that have just gotten in the business and just, I think this would be really cool to do, and I'm passionate about it. And it's like, guys, it's not that easy. And I tell people all the time, these businesses fail for one of two reasons, right? Is people that want to build community and are great at building community that forget that this is real estate and a business, right? Or the people that are real estate and business savvy that forget you're trying to build a community, right? And so
totally, you need a mix. You need a Nick Bratton running around after in the ear of the community-minded people. Yeah.
And I think that's a great part. That's where, you have to be equally aligned with your partners, to whatever extent, right? That's, you bring up Nick's great for me because I'm not a detail person, right? And he is. And so he looks at the business totally different than I do. But yeah, I mean, again, that was a great connection too. We'd had him on the podcast. You got,
I know, he sat behind me at one of the sessions. He's like, I'm Nick. I was like, oh, so fun.
Not what I expected. I told you, right?
No, totally. Yeah. Speaking of which, AY had a huge presence at the conference. Where was everyone else?
Well, I might have had something to do with all those, right? Originally, Jillian wasn't going to come.
Okay.
She's like, how do I get approval? And I was like, just sign up. And that's why we purposely got her on the panel, right? Was to drive that. Obviously, Charlie is local. Charlie and Nick are both local, so that made a big difference.
Good point. That helped. Okay.
And Charlie's just, a big supporter of me and just the industry on a macro level. He doesn't dive deep in a whole lot of the details.
Well, he's been going to GWA conferences for a long time.
Well, he was part of he was with Liquid Space for a minute. And then, Nick was at IWG, right? So he understands it. But to your point is, and I've said this before, it's hard for me because it's great from the standpoint of I'm the only real estate service provider doing what I'm doing, with the exception of a few at that level, right? I mean, obviously you got Casey coming in and a few others, but from a large real estate service provider, there's no one, right? I think Cushman, Ryan Hoops, and came at one point, and he showed up for one session, and he said
But
he was
that's
going
right,
to spend
because
the
they're
next
local.
year.
Okay, I didn't even.
They're local.
Yeah.
But again, it's just so interesting that you're right. There isn't any of these big firms that are trying to. I mean, we even engaged JLL, and
Yeah.
they were all for it, and then we didn't
They
get them
weren't
on the
there.
panel they wanted, and then didn't show up. And so, I don't know. It's just,
I think it's a miss.
it's a huge miss, right? It's an absolute huge miss, and this industry is not going anywhere. It's just going to get stronger.
Yeah.
And it's going to continue growing tentacles, if you will, from the standpoint of it's not just the operator business, it's not just the enterprise business, but now you're looking at the investor business. I mean, vendor business, property management. There's so many different sectors of this, because so many of these landlords are going to start doing programming of an entire building, right? And so, yeah, it's just interesting when you see that, and then you look at other sectors, right? And we're getting more aggregators, we're getting more software providers, we're getting more of other vendors, and it's just like, who's missing it, right? And and that's the unfortunate part is, you've got to get the right people in the room, right? And so, in the right people that are really pushing for this. Again, I mean, Charlie's done an incredible job with AY, setting up even the foundation before he came and, twisted my arm to join. And so we just need to focus more on how do we really go out and get those people there, right? We had some of the bigger landlords, right? We had Hines represented, not only because of Annie's over there now and awesome, but we had one of their execs come in. We had Bridge show up, and they've got their own brand going now. And I think, and I forgot John Sakaitis was here for AY, right? And so the interesting part about these players is they show up thinking they're just going to show up and, do their session and leave. Well, John said he had a flight out that very next morning, and he's like, I wish I had more time because everyone's walking up and asking me questions and doing all this. And that's even what Annie said with her executive. He showed up and he was like, oh wow, this is the flex industry. Wasn't expecting this.
Yeah.
And I think that's just it, is back to your point of a lot of people don't realize the amount of people that are involved in this industry and how far along the spectrum of growth it is, right? It's come a long way.
It has come a long way. Huge growth. Yeah. And I think hopefully next year we'll have an even broader kind of array of folks that get involved. We'll have to start now. And starting with anybody who's listening.
Well, we'll start with having them register now, as opposed
register
to
now. Totally. William, get the registration form up. Washington, DC. I'm sure it's like third week in September. I could be wrong about that. We should double check. We'll start promoting next year's conference as we're going to start.
But you called it. Everyone signs up at the last minute, and sure enough, with 4 weeks.
Oh, it's so stressful as a content planner or as a ticket seller. Don't do that.
So, I mean, what are your key takeaways? You had 3 key takeaways of
Great. Okay, we'll try to wrap this up. I was just looking to see what I missed on Friday. Yeah, I mean, my first key takeaway is it really makes a difference to go to stuff in person.
Yeah.
Even if you are just, a newer operator like Ann Long. I don't know if you met Ann. She's awesome. She's in Spokane, Washington, and she's doing some really interesting deals. She's been on.
She's the one that owns the real estate, and she's got a couple management deals.
She doesn't own. She's doing an interesting partnership with a big asset owner. Okay. And she said, doing partnerships can be really stressful. She's had some like ups and downs with, and she said this was so energizing. So, not that everything is not sunshine and rainbows in the industry, right? It's a challenging business, and there's stuff, you're always thinking about, but really energizing. And again, that's stuff that maybe you can get on Zoom. But it's just so different to go in person and to connect with other people who are working on the same, we might not all have the same role, but we're all passionate about, this little niche industry. So going to stuff live, I think really matters. Okay. The second thing would probably be, I'm kind of interested in what Grant is saying. Like, I think we could do more at the conferences of like, what's next? Grant with his hospitality, like I said, Javier, he's really hospitality focused. He's got his biz bar in his locations. It's a totally different experience. To your point, you're not just selling, so what's like I love those little nuggets of insight into what's the next thing that's going to come. What's my third takeaway? I think maybe the third takeaway, people talk about this in co-working. I think it's the same for conference, is like the serendipitous interaction. Like there's so many people I've never talked much, like the people you connect with that are unexpected. I sat next to some people, like I said, I'd never met them before. And, I'd ask them a question and we'd chat, and just kind of putting yourself out there a little bit more, which is easier to do in person than over email. So
I can't imagine you're trying to put yourself out more than 285 episodes.
Yeah, hard to imagine. I know, but the in-person, it just really, in-person relationships really matter. I just, and going to a conference and having access to that many people at once is a gift.
Yeah, no, for sure. And I'm going to use a widely used business three-prong approach, which is people, process, and product, right?
Yeah.
And so from the people side, it's not just having good people, it's having people together, right? And so we've missed that over the last few years. And then people having the ability to exchange ideas and collaborate and just get to know each other, right? I mean, that's so huge in our industry, right? And that's what I love about it. It's not a small industry anymore, but it's not a large industry, but it's large enough that from an overall geographic area that not everyone knows everyone. And so much like you, right, is a lot of people recognize us and walk up and I'm like, oh, that's what you look like, or that's who you are. Or in a lot of cases, I hate to say it, we walk by people and don't interact with them, totally not realizing who they are.
I'm sure.
And if they don't walk up to me, and then I go back and I'm like, crap, I passed her 5 times and I never said hi. And then you feel like a jerk. But I mean, that's the beauty of being in person, right? Is just that interaction. And for me with ADHD, I've got to be in person in order to interact and be present to a certain extent, right? The second one is the product, right? The evolution of what's out there, the evolution of pushing the envelope, right? Of, talking through small office, large office, team office, conferencing, all these things, and just hearing different people's takes and really understanding it. And I think that's what I really value and what I get to do. And you do it to a certain extent too, but not as much as I do today. But I mean, being able to drop in, I've spent over 100 nights out of my bed this year, but being able to drop in and see different product types and what works, what doesn't, and learning from those things and having that interaction is so huge to seeing the product evolution. Well, a lot of people don't get to do what I do, right? And so the ability to sit there with someone from across the country or even across the city, right? I can't tell you how many people are like, I didn't realize you were that close to me. And then they start talking about what's working and what's not. So that product conversation is huge, right? And then the last one's the process, right? Is everything from the research and John and Scott and James talking about what is available, what's out there, what are the metrics saying, all the way through the full execution of the process, with build out, with design, build out, FF&E, and then ultimately software and shipping, like Matt Going's new product, right?
I know.
Amazing.
We won't spoiler alert because we're going to host him on the podcast.
We're going to have him on talking about, 500 unit or 500 locations with IWG globally are using that. We don't even think about stuff like that. And so I'm excited to get him on and talk about that product. But that's all part of the process of getting a space open. And you've run one of these spaces. I haven't. People will ask me, they're like, why don't you have your own? And I'm like, I'm not a detail person, right? And I recognize that. And so getting those 3 sectors of people, product, and process all in a room together, talking and exchanging ideas was awesome to me.
Yeah. Agreed. Okay. Big shout out to Very for hosting 70s night. And
yes, that was very a census and instant group. I think
Oh,
it's
all three of them posted that. Perfect. Okay,
And then
good.
shout out to AY for getting the buses.
Huge
They
shout
don't
out to
they,
AY for
they,
the
they don't know
buses.
that they got the buses, but they'll be getting the bill for the buses.
Thank you, AY, for funding the buses. Fan Flip coordinated the karaoke night.
Yeah.
Who else? I feel like, yeah, lots of great sponsors it made. I mean, the venue is lovely. The food is good. I missed the first night of happy hour too. I heard that
I
was
purposely
good.
missed that.
Yeah, you needed a nap.
Well, we did the GWA board meeting or
Oh
board
yeah,
dinner.
the dinner. Yeah,
And then and I was like, if I go over there, and I had to be ready for emceeing the night. I was like, I need a full night of sleep.
totally.
But I mean, it was awesome. Can't wait to do it again.
Yep.
It's again, you can't replace being with people, right? And that's
the moral of the story. Awesome. Okay. Well, we'll get the registration page up for next year and start getting people signed up.
Perfect.
Thanks, Gio.
Take care.